Alma Rojas was only 18 years old, but she already knew what hard work felt like. She lived in the beautiful coastal city of Valparaiso, Chile, where colorful houses climbed the hills and fishing boats filled the harbor every morning. Ever since she was a little girl, she had dreamed of becoming a marine engineer. She loved the ocean and wanted to design machines that could make life safer for the fishermen who worked there every day. While many teenagers spent their weekends at the beach with friends, Alma spent hers repairing torn fishing nets for local fishermen and tutoring younger students after school. It wasn't easy, but every dollar she earned had one purpose. She was building her future. Her late grandfather had believed in her more than anyone else. Before he passed away, he opened a college fund for Alma because he always said, "Education is the one thing nobody can ever take from you." Those words stayed in her heart. Every scholarship she won, every prize from school, and every bit of money she earned went into that fund. Whenever she felt tired, she reminded herself that one day all the sacrifices would be worth it. At home, her mother, Veronica, often smiled proudly and called Alma the responsible one. She trusted Alma to solve her own problems and never worried about her. But Alma's younger brother, Matthias, lived a completely different life. He had dropped out of vocational school, jumped from one expensive hobby to another, and always expected someone else to clean up the mess he made. No matter how badly he failed, their mother always rushed to save him. Then came the email that changed everything. One evening, Alma opened a message from the university. She smiled, expecting information about orientation. Instead, her heart stopped. "Your tuition payment has not been received. Please complete payment immediately to keep your admission." Her hands began to shake. "There has to be a mistake," she whispered. She ran all the way home, barely able to breathe. The moment she walked through the front door, she looked at her mother. "Mom, where's my college money?" she asked, her voice trembling. Veronica froze. She couldn't even look into Alma's eyes. After a long, painful silence, she quietly said, "I gave it to your brother. He needed a fresh start." For a moment, the whole world seemed to disappear. Alma couldn't hear the traffic outside or the waves crashing against the harbor. She could only hear those words repeating inside her mind. The future she had spent years building had been handed to someone who never even tried to earn it. A few days later, Alma finally learned what had happened to the money she had spent years saving. It hadn't been used for college. It hadn't even been kept for an emergency. Almost all of it had been given to Matthias so he could start a luxury car detailing business with two of his friends. They rented an expensive building, bought costly equipment, and acted like they were already successful businessmen. They posted photos on social media, wore expensive clothes, and talked about becoming rich overnight. But none of them knew how to run a business. They spent money faster than they earned it. Customers stopped coming because the work wasn't good enough. Bills piled up. Arguments started between the partners. Just a few months later, the business was finished. The shop closed, the equipment was sold, and every dollar of Alma's college fund was gone. When Alma heard the truth, she felt sick. She couldn't believe that years of hard work had disappeared because of someone else's careless choices. That evening, she stood in the living room, trying to hold back her tears. "How could you do this?" she asked her mother. "That money was my future." Instead of apologizing, Veronica crossed her arms. "Family comes first," she said. Alma looked at her with tears filling her eyes. "I am family," she whispered. For a second, the room became completely silent. Then her mother answered with words Alma would never forget. "No, you're stronger than him. You'll figure something out." It felt like someone had broken her heart into pieces. The money was gone, but those words hurt even more. Her own mother believed her dreams were less important simply because she expected Alma to survive without help. A few weeks later, the university canceled her admission because the tuition had never been paid. The acceptance letter she had proudly shown everyone became nothing more than a painful memory. While her old classmates packed their bags for college, Alma packed cleaning supplies. Every night, she worked at the harbor, cleaning large fishing boats and cargo ships after the crews returned. Her hands became rough from soap and cold seawater. Some nights she was so exhausted that she could barely stand. Still, she refused to let her dream die. When she came home after work instead of sleeping, she opened her old laptop and studied free engineering courses online. She watched lectures, solved difficult problems, and filled notebooks with calculations while everyone else was asleep. Every evening, as she walked past the university, she saw students her own age laughing together, carrying backpacks and talking about classes. She imagined herself walking beside them. Then she kept walking, knowing she couldn't afford to enter those gates. Some nights, she cried quietly in her room where no one could hear her. But every morning she wiped away her tears, got back to work and kept learning. Because even though her family had taken away her college, they could never take away her determination to build the future she still believed was waiting for her. Almost 3 years passed, and Alma never gave up on herself. Her life was still far from easy. She worked long nights at the harbor, came home exhausted, and spent every free hour studying engineering online. She couldn't afford expensive equipment, so she collected broken boat parts, old metal, and discarded materials from the docks. While other people saw trash, Alma saw possibilities. Little by little, she built a small engineering project using recycled boat parts. It was a simple but smart design that could improve the efficiency of small fishing boats while using less energy. A local mentor encouraged her to enter an international engineering innovation competition. Alma almost didn't apply. She looked at the application and quietly said, "People with real degrees will be there. I don't belong." But she submitted it anyway. Weeks later, an email arrived that changed her life. She had won first place. Engineers from around the world praised her creativity and determination. Soon after, an international ocean technology company offered her a paid internship. For the first time in years, Alma felt like all those lonely nights had meant something. Someone had finally noticed her talent instead of her struggles. As the company completed her background paperwork, something completely unexpected happened. One afternoon, Alma received a phone call from a lawyer she had never spoken to before. "Miss Alma Rojas?" the man asked politely. "Yes. My name is Andres Salazar. I was your grandfather's attorney. We need to meet as soon as possible. I've discovered something very important." Her heart began to race. The next day, she sat quietly across from him as he placed several old documents on the table. "Before your grandfather passed away," the lawyer explained, "he created a legal trust that was meant only for your education. The money was protected by law. It was never supposed to be touched by anyone else." Alma frowned in confusion. "But my mother said it was our family savings." The lawyer slowly shook his head. "No, it was your trust. It legally belonged to you." He slid another document across the table. "While reviewing old estate records, I found evidence that someone submitted forged paperwork to gain access to the account years ago." Alma looked down at the signature. It was her mother's name. Her hands started shaking as she turned each page. Every document told the same painful story. Her mother had signed papers she had no legal right to sign. She had taken money that was never hers and given it away without Alma's permission. Tears filled Alma's eyes, but she couldn't say a single word. For years, she believed her dream had been stolen because her mother made a bad decision. Now she knew the truth. This wasn't just a heartbreaking betrayal by her own family. It was fraud. It was illegal. As Alma quietly gathered the documents, she realized something important. The truth had finally found its way back to her. And this time it came with proof that no one could deny. After meeting with the lawyer, Alma had every reason to take her mother straight to court. She had proof. She could have started a legal battle immediately. But she made a different choice. Instead of spending her energy on revenge, she decided to spend it on building the life that had once been stolen from her. She worked harder than ever before. The internship became a full-time job. Her managers quickly noticed that Alma didn't just solve problems. She found better ways to do things. She worked late, asked questions, and never stopped learning. The same determination that had carried her through lonely nights at the harbor now helped her stand out among experienced engineers. Year after year, she earned promotions. Within 4 years, Alma became one of the youngest project directors at a renewable marine energy company. Her innovative designs helped create cleaner energy from the ocean, and her work attracted international investors. People who had never heard her name before were now inviting her to speak at engineering conferences. The girl who once cleaned ships at night was now leading teams that designed the future of marine technology. But she wasn't finished yet. Alma returned to Valparaiso with a dream that was even bigger than her own success. She bought an old shipbuilding workshop that had been close to shutting down. The buildings were worn out, the machines were old, and many people believed the business couldn't be saved. Alma believed otherwise. She invested in new equipment, hired skilled workers, and trained young people who had never been given a chance. Slowly, the workshop came back to life. Orders increased, new customers arrived, and before long, the small workshop had become a respected engineering company that provided good jobs for dozens of local families. One quiet afternoon, while Alma was reviewing plans in her office, her assistant knocked on the door. "There are 2 visitors asking to see you," she said. When Alma looked up, she froze. Standing outside were her mother, Veronica, and her brother, Matthias. Time had not been kind to them. Matthias looked tired and worried. His expensive dreams had disappeared, leaving him buried in debt after another failed business. Veronica looked older too. The confidence she once carried had been replaced by nervous smiles. After sitting down, she cleared her throat. "We're family," she said softly. Maybe you can help us." Alma didn't answer right away. She slowly opened a drawer in her desk and took out a folder. Without saying a word, she placed copies of the legal documents in front of them. Then she looked directly at her mother. "I know exactly what happened to my college fund." The color disappeared from Veronica's face. Matthias stared at the papers, turning each page with trembling hands. Neither of them said a single word. The office became completely silent. For the first time, they realized the truth was no longer a family secret. It was written in black and white, and there was nothing either of them could say to erase it. For several long moments, no one spoke. Veronica stared at the documents lying on the table, and then the tears finally came. She covered her face with her hands as years of guilt seemed to crash down on her all at once. "I'm so sorry," she cried. "I thought I was protecting your brother. I thought he just needed one more chance." Alma looked at her quietly. She had imagined this moment many times over the years. She thought she would feel angry. She thought she would want to shout, but she didn't. She simply looked at her mother and spoke in a calm voice. "You weren't protecting him," Alma said. "You were teaching him that someone else would always pay for his mistakes." Those words hit harder than anything else. Matthias slowly lowered his head. For the first time in his life, he stopped making excuses. He finally saw how much his sister had lost because everyone had spent years protecting him from the consequences of his own choices. Veronica wiped away her tears. "We've lost everything," she whispered. "Please, can you help us?" Alma took a deep breath. She had enough money now to solve all of their problems with one bank transfer. But she knew that money had never been the real solution. She gently shook her head. "I won't give you money," she said. "I won't pay another debt, and I won't finance another bad decision." Her mother looked down, disappointed but understanding. Then Alma continued, "But I will help in a different way." Both of them looked up. "I'll pay for financial counseling. I'll help Matthias find honest work. I'll introduce him to people who are hiring. If he's willing to work hard, I'll support that. But he has to build his own future." Matthias felt tears fill his eyes. "I don't deserve your kindness," he said quietly. "No," Alma replied, "but everyone deserves the chance to change." That day, they left her office without a single dollar. Instead, they left with something much more valuable, a chance to start over the right way. Over the next few months, Matthias kept his promise. Through one of Alma's business contacts, he found a steady job as a maintenance technician. The work was difficult, and the pay wasn't exciting, but for the first time in his life, every paycheck came from his own effort. Slowly, he paid off his debts and began rebuilding his life with honesty instead of shortcuts. Veronica apologized again and again. She knew some mistakes could never be erased. She also understood that forgiveness didn't mean everything would return to the way it had been. Trust takes years to build and only a moment to break. One early morning, Alma stood at the same harbor where she had once spent countless nights cleaning ships just to survive. The sun slowly rose over the Pacific Ocean, covering the water with golden light. She smiled as she watched the waves. Years ago, she had stood there feeling like her dream was over. Now she finally understood something powerful. Her greatest victory wasn't becoming successful. It wasn't owning a company or earning respect around the world. Her greatest victory was proving that someone else's betrayal could delay a dream, but it could never destroy the heart of a person who refuses to give up.